Yep.
She's live.
Yep.
Where will the questions come up here again?
This is Instagram.
Yep. And
TikTok there.
TikTok questions will just come up.
Yeah.
You would think on day 4 of going live I'd know what to do, but here we are.
I'll be opening TikTok, Instagram on there too to follow along.
Hi everyone. I'm just getting my technology sorted so I can answer all of your baby sleep questions. Hi Amy. These have been so fun the last few days. This streams across Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube, answering everyone's baby sleep questions. So should I read them there or over here?
Well, there you can scroll on there.
Oh yeah, okay, good idea. Sorry, my husband's just helping me set up as per usual.
Okay.
Amazing. All right. Feel free. Okay, here we go. We've got a question. Following your day schedule for 9-month-old, she wakes at 8 p.m. wide awake. Is that normal? The thing to know about scheduling in and of itself doesn't always just fix problems. So I don't know if you've had sleep issues prior and then we've made a schedule tweak. Sometimes some 9-month-old babies need a slightly longer wake window. I've even put 9-month-old babies on 4-hour wake windows before bed. Depends on if you're on the 2 or the 3. I'm guessing you're probably on the 2 nap schedule. But if there is a waking after bedtime like that, the beauty of an age-appropriate schedule is you can know that it's not because of the schedule, if that makes sense. So you can just be really consistent in how you respond to it. The other thing is whether or not your baby can self-settle, in which case are they waking out of a sleep cycle and not able to put themselves back down. But is it normal, as in no, the deepest stretch of sleep really should be from bedtime until midnight. But I need to know more to know exactly what's going on. My guess is it's not purely schedule related, I'm guessing. Or we just need to tweak the wake window before bed. That's a really good question to jump into Snooze Social, my baby sleep membership, we can just do an audit and find out more, like where are solids placed, what's the final breast or bottle feed like, just to rejig it before we increase a wake window. There are so many steps I want to do before I look to fix a sleep schedule. Hi Cassie, how are you? Speaking of Snooze Social. Let's have a look. I can show you. Let me just get it up. If people that know me know that because I talk about schedules and wake windows and baby's age and volumes and all these numbers floating around in my head, I often struggle to remember everything off the top of my head. So someone just asked about a 4.5-month-old schedule. I often use a 7 a.m. up, which is what you're after. And then it depends also if your baby is capable of doing a long or a short nap. At 4.5 months, I usually do 4-hourly feeds. So we start doing 7, 11, probably 3, and then before bed. But let me know if your baby can do short or long, because if I give you too long and a short, you might think that sounds very ambitious. Mandy, does it matter how sleep is distributed during the day? What if they only did 40 min morning and 2.5 lunch? Mandy, I remember you asking a question yesterday when my answer was about how there can be, when we've got sleep issues, it is important as to how we distribute sleep totals so that we fix sleep problems confidently. If a baby takes a really long morning nap, which I think was the issue yesterday for you, um, they're less inclined to take a long second nap, in which case you're sort of left chasing your tail, and we can often end up with overtiredness going into the night, which can cause overnight wakings and early rising. There are many ways to distribute sleep totals. Different sleep consultants will do different things. Often I even have to think outside the box from my sort of go-tos, but for the most part, I work to usually a short for the most part, I like to bulk out the second half of the day with sleep. So whether that's a short, long cat nap or 2 longs, I like the second half, from 12 or 1 o'clock even onwards to be filled out so that we go into bedtime with a well-rested baby. Just having a look here. Um Kirsten, you can use a 4-hour wake window before bed with 10 months old if you want to, no problem. If you're finding that there's hard crying at 3.5 hours, definitely you can use a 4-hour wake window at 10 months old. Beck, 9.5-month-old, medium naps, sleeps all night, is 3.5-hour wake window, too long middle of the day. It sounds like sleep's working for you. That sounds fantastic. I'm just having a look. Again, I can never do my calc. What do I usually do? 11, 12, 1, 2. Yeah, I usually do a 3-hour wake window, but if 3.5 hours is working for you, that's fantastic. Jess, why is my 8-month-old still catnapping? Often I can resettle the big nap. She wakes once at night. Often when we've got catnapping that has gone on for a really, not even a really long time, they've only been alive for 8 months, but ongoing, when we know developmentally they have the capability to consolidate a sleep cycle, is sometimes they don't have the skill, or they don't know that they need to use it. Now, there are lots of things that can cause catnapping: scheduling, they need lots of time down on the mat, spacing of milk feed, solids, environment, all of that. But so often, sort of the final piece of the puzzle is that they need some nap training. And often we hope and hope and hope that the nap will organically consolidate, and sometimes it absolutely can. But if you're able to resettle it, it shows that baby is able, that they're still tired. So that's a great place to start. And now I would be looking to more actively nap train and working to cot time or crib hour or whatever you want to call it, to encourage them to do this themselves and to use their self-settling skills to go back to sleep, because it can become very ritualized. I sleep for a sleep cycle, mum, dad, whoever comes and does X, Y, and Z, and they just don't know that they need to flex that muscle. Alessi's asked, how long does nap training usually take? Been 9 days. Able to do 2-hour naps. Have done a few days, but inconsistent still, sometimes one. It depends on what your schedule is, and how old your baby is. And how, 2 hours is a long time. If you looks like you're needing one more sleep cycle to complete the goal nap. Naps can definitely take a while, but 9 days, like, you're seeing some progress. I need to know more, because 2 hours is a long nap if you've got a younger baby, if that makes sense. So, for example, if you've got a 9-month-old, I'd be asking for an hour and a half nap, in which case an hour and 20, fantastic. They can just hang out in their cot for 10 minutes, for example. How to avoid 6 a.m. wake ups, almost 7-month-old. On my schedules, I'm always aiming for 11 to 12 hours of sleep overnight, which, with a bedtime of 7 to 7:30, gets a wake up somewhere between 6 and 7 a.m. which means that if everything else is lined up, for me, a waking in the 6s is fine, and I continue to delay getting up until 7. But you need to make sure that your first nap of the day isn't too early, which can reinforce the early rise. I'd also be having a look at making sure that baby isn't hungry. Um, because 6 a.m. can fast become 5:45, which becomes 5:30, and it's a bit of a backslide from there. So go and have a listen. I mean, the reason I'm sort of sounding vague is I almost, for a lot of babies, wouldn't call 6 a.m. early rising as such. But in order to have more context, I'd need to know more. But go and have a listen to my early rising podcast episodes, because I think that will help you do a bit of an audit about what might be going on. But regardless, 7 a.m. on my schedules remains as uptime. You anchor that in so that if a baby is sick, has a bad night, starts childcare, you've come back from holidays, whatever, they always know in terms of their internal body clock that 7 a.m. is up, and it encourages a later sleep. Um, Emily, 5-month-old is only 32 nap at a time, only really does 3 naps. Should I be trying to extend, forcing the 4th nap? Bedtime is usually 6:37, 10 p.m. dream feed, and 1 feed before waking at 6 a.m. Really normal and common for 5-month-old babies that I work with. I would look at extending the 3 naps that you've already got. And if anything, I would only then look at extending the middle of the day nap, so that you can start nudging the body clock to know, hey, it is still sleep time. And the beauty of 5-month-old babies, they're usually far more receptive to a nap, rescue, and resettle, versus, let's say, an 11-month-old who it can just be game over the moment they see you, even in the pitch black. The other thing you could do is just do the full long middle of the day nap, fully assisted. So you just do it in the pram, hood down, make it dark, white noise, and make sure you are still walking, pounding that pavement at the 32-minute mark, and you walk for the entirety of the nap to try and just, again, train the body clock. This is still sleep time, but you're using the assistance from the get-go. That can be really useful at this age. The key always to longer naps for a baby sort of post the 4-month sleep regression, and definitely from 5 to 6 month onwards, the first place to start is self-settling. Before we even get to the consolidation and the linking, I need to know that a baby has the skill to self-settle. Jess, thank you. You're welcome. No problem. Oh, Sammy, your 7-month-old randomly stopped the 1.5-hour lunch nap, now only doing 30 minutes. That is very cheeky, but you know that baby can do it. So you might want to take a sideways step for a couple of days and just fully assist, and then see if that can help lengthen it back out. But then I would go back, and you know that baby can do this. So you're not asking them to do anything they don't already know how to do. As always, you do a check of, are you on the right schedule? Has baby had enough time to move and play and do all of those things? But then you just sort of work to the cot time. So if you know that your nap is, for example, 12:45 till 2:15, then we're working to 12:45, 2:15. 30 minutes is, they've definitely still got sleep in the tank. So then having a look at what is happening at the 30-minute mark. Have you now started rescuing it? Things can just unravel a little bit, but they can definitely still do that. 13-month-old needs me to lengthen wake windows, but isn't ready for 1 nap yet. What should I do? Okay, I talked about this a lot on yesterday's live. So this is a great question, because this was I sort of from yesterday's live, there were 3 main, themes that emerged. One was early rising, that's always a pest for so many families. The second one was the 3 to 2 nap drop and holding on to that 3rd nap for as long as possible, and your scenario of holding on to 2 naps for as long as possible was the next most common. So at 13 months old, I would definitely still be holding on to 2 naps. So I would do a short long, a 10 till 10:30 and a 1 till 3 with a 7 p.m. bed. That 10 till 10:30 is fully assisted, no rules. You're not holding on to it for long. So I don't care how you get it in. The one to protect is your long afternoon nap. That's the one you come home for. That's the one that's done in the cot or the crib, in the dark room, white noise, et cetera, et cetera. Because what will happen is that over the coming weeks to months, as baby naturally lengthens their wake window as you're experiencing, that nap will become 10:15 to 10:30. It'll become 10:20 to 10:30, and then they'll just outright refuse it, at which point you're a one nap they're a one nap kind of babe. And I tell you what, life is so good on one nap unless it's happened too soon. And it feels good initially, and then everything starts to fall apart. So, that's what I would do. And again, I have a podcast episode all about the 2 to 1 nap transition. And then on Tuesday of this week, we released another episode about navigating or troubleshooting nap transitions. And we talk a lot about the 2 to 1 nap drop in that, and some of the sort of the hiccups and the wobbles that can emerge. So if you haven't already, go and listen to those. The podcast is called Nap Trapped. And it's been very useful for a lot of families. I've actually loved having the podcast as a resource for families because Becca and I chat, and we both have same but different takes, and we can talk about real life examples. I find it a really good resource. I'll even send it. So for example, today I've done 2 consults, one with a 6-month-old and one with a 9-month-old, and both of their summaries I've also hyperlinked to podcast episodes, because I think it's good to also hear it from a different person. Also, we chat it out, and it gives so much more context, and fleshes it out more than in a consult, and definitely more than in these lives. 8-month-old, very sensitive, will scream or cry when put in cot, drowsy, needs to be held or fed to sleep. Any advice? Chloe, I find that the idea of drowsy but awake to be very elusive and tricky for a lot of babies, regardless of their temperament. But no, not regardless, like possibly more so for the more sensitive and perhaps more vocal babies, because it's this limbo of they're halfway through falling asleep. Not only can it just be very elusive to ever reach drowsy but awake, but it's very hard for them because you've put them to sleep to this extent and then taken away the assistance, which can feel very confusing. Plus, they're so tired, which can then mean big tears. So I actually don't encourage. I mean, of course, if it works for listeners, go for drowsy but awake. But I don't. It's not ever part of my suggestions or practice for some of the reasons that you're experiencing. So I would actually prefer to just start from a calm but awake state. And then when we are teaching self-settling, which maybe is the goal that you're after here, we need a baby to move through all of the layers of falling asleep on their own for them to sort of understand and master the skill. And it truly can be a skill a teachable skill for so many babies. So, but before you even get there, I would make sure that all of your feeds are locked in during the day, depending on your 8-month-old. So if they're on 3 naps, I'd be having 4 hourly feeds so that you can confidently not feed to sleep. Then you might like to do the holding, but all the way to sleep. Then once your day work looks good, you would start with calm but awake into the cot, and maybe you want to use a cot side settling technique. The thing to know is I'm not afraid of babies crying. Naturally, like, I don't want any baby to cry, and I absolutely understand and know the difference when it's your own baby. You know, you can feel it, it's visceral under your skin. The reason I'm not afraid of it is because I understand that there are many different causes for baby to cry, and when we're making change with sleep, they haven't got the memo, and so I feel confident in supporting a baby through tears when making change, because with the way that I work, I know that this is not tears because of undertired, overtired, too hot, too cold, too hungry, sore tummy from gassy vegetables at dinner, that process of elimination. So I can be confident in supporting a baby through that. And I know that my consistency is the reassurance that will minimize tears. So it can be really hard, but if there's crying, I also need it to be productive. You know, I see on social media that, you know, my baby cried for 6 hours when we tried fur, but I've never had that. There is no magic number as to how long a baby will cry for when we make change. But by the time we even get to bedtime, I know as your sleep consultant, or even as the mother for my own children, if I'm making change, that the tears are not because I have missed a fundamental need, and that I will always go in and check on them. So, I mean, that was a crying chat, but all that to say, you may still find tears even if you have dotted your I's, crossed your T's, got all your ducks lined up, all the things. Tears are normal. And I see a lot of people talking about no tears, tear free. And I was talking about this on a consult today. I've been doing this for 8 years. I have absolutely worked with babies who don't cry. Absolutely. But it's not, I can't pick it. I can't make a baby not cry. They are absolutely allowed to cry, but your job is to be consistent so they pick up on the pattern the next night, the next night, the next night, the next nap. You're welcome. I know that was probably like I talked about something that wasn't your exact question, but it's a really good topic of conversation, because I think lots of sleep consultants, especially sleep consultants that maybe are just starting, are afraid to talk about crying, because people don't want to lose followers. They don't want to, there's so much hate towards sleep consultants. It can be really rough. So, but I think we need to talk about crying, and the way that it can play out when we're making change with baby sleep. 4-month-old pre-regression has started, 1.5-hour wake windows and only 45 minutes 4 to 5 times a day. At 4 months old, 4 45-minute naps a day is absolutely age appropriate, albeit frustrating. I appreciate that. Where I would start when you're starting to experience this is starting to practice and offer these opportunities to self-settle. So to offer putting down baby awake for the first nap of the day, and definitely at bedtime, and just have a play around with some sleep training techniques, whether you're in, pick up, put down is a good one at this age, hands on. It depends on if your baby vibes with that at all. And it's just about starting to flex that muscle of, can baby put themselves back to sleep? Because the only way they will ever then, well, not the only way, some babies just organically do it, but they need to still know to have the skill. For so many that struggle with catnapping ongoing, they need to have the skill set in the first place to then link the sleep cycle. So that's where I would start. And if you're looking for settling techniques and example schedules, lots of people in the live yesterday actually have my 3 to 4 month sleep course, and we're talking about how helpful it'd been, particularly as first time mothers, to give them different schedules, but different settling techniques, and then they could. It's all well and good, I think, sometimes for a sleep consultant on the other side of the screen, or when I do my consults, to say, now do this, 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 this. But if you've got, sometimes you need to get a feel for it. You need to gauge your baby's temperament. If something is too stimulating, too hands on, there's no right or wrong for every baby. So there's quite a few in the 3 to 4 month sleep course. I've decided to sit on the couch today. I was. It's been a lazy. I'm now under my dressing gown as well, in my true natural habitat as a sleep consultant. Today's main theme seems to be a lot about nap work, and naps are really tricky. He self settles really well, just won't go back to sleep after waking up. Thank you. Yeah. You can also start. So sorry, just to backtrack, a lot of younger babies are still napping in relatively bright rooms. I would now be looking to make, if you haven't already, the room really, really dark, so that when they come out of that first sleep cycle, he is encouraged to go back down from an environmental perspective. Make sure the white noise, the pink noise, the brown noise, whatever you play, is going the whole nap long. And then, just as you've been offering these great opportunities, because he can self-settle so beautifully, now you start to offer these opportunities also at the end of the nap. And knowing that the 45-minute naps are so fine at his age, but just give him 10 minutes at the end. Maybe even start with 5. Just pause, because you never know. There will inevitably be one day where he thinks, you know what, I'm still tired and I'm used to having this, mum doesn't ever rush in. I will just drift back off to sleep. Even if he only does another 8 minutes, we take it. You just continue to offer these little micro opportunities. Sasha, sleep training using your program. He's doing really well. That's amazing, but wakes at 5 a.m. Do I wait before feeding 10 months old? Sasha, I just need to know when your other feed is. I probably would be less inclined to feed around 5:30. In fact, I would use your sleep training technique until 7. But I want to know when that lasts. Like, where are we up to? Have we gone from 8 feeds down to 4, down to 2, and like, where are we up to with the weaning process? 5 a.m. Every baby wants to start their day between 5 and 5:30. I will die on that hill, like every baby. So it's really normal, and often, in fact, when I'm doing a 2-week sleep training package, often the final thing that I'm ironing out is an early rise that's cropped up along the way, and then we just got to bring it home. So what you're experiencing is pretty textbook. He has dinner at 4:30, then breastfeeds at 6:30, but it's super quick. I think we need to push out. Sasha, let me know how old he is, but I'd be looking to make sure that breastfeed is nice and full, because we always want to rule out that hunger is happening at 5 a.m. My guess is it's not, based on his age. We know that 10-month-old babies can absolutely sleep 11 to 12 hours overnight. 10 months old today. Amazing. Sorry, you might have even already said that to me. There's just so many ages popping up. So are you on so at 10 months, I want you on 3 milk feeds, so 3 breastfeeds, double-sided breastfeeds. Sometimes we need to pull back on dinner just a teeny tiny bit if a baby really has just devoured dinner solids and doesn't want that final milk. But I would need to know more. But fundamentally, I would probably treat 5 a.m. as an overnight waking and just sleep train until 7, and then put him on the breast at 7, and he'll go gangbusters. Is probably my like if I'm shooting from the hip kind of answer. Is it normal for my 8-month-old to wake for 2 bottles between 8:30 p.m. and 7:30 a.m.? Is it normal? Absolutely. I work with babies having all sorts of feeds, and the truth is that if that works for you and baby, then that's absolutely no problem. If does the average 8-month-old need to? That's a very different question, and the answer would be no. An 8-month-old can definitely sleep probably all night long without, and I'm talking, healthy, thriving, gaining weight, no feeding issues, et cetera, et cetera. But again, like if it works for you, I'm never in any mad rush. I was even talking today on a consult. Did they want to keep one feed in? Because I'd sort of guessed that they would probably end up with one feed at 2 or 3 a.m. And then do you want me to walk you through how to get rid of that? Or are you happy to just keep that in the mix? So there's no hard and fast, but they probably don't need it. But I say that then with the caveat of you have to give those calories back to the day. It's about calorie redistribution. We never want I never want a baby hungry overnight. I never want to sleep train through genuine hunger. So calorie redistribution is a huge part of what I do for work. And I think people think that as a sleep consultant, I'm just sleep train, sleep train, sleep train, sleep train. And yes, that absolutely plays a substantial role in the work that I do. That is in one of my plans or summaries or concept, like it's the final thing we talk about. It's like the last 10 minutes of the 1-hour consult. Almost, I start with environment, I start with schedule, and part of that is day feeds and day volumes and workshopping that and distributing the calories. Because the sleep training is not going to work if baby's hungry. You're going to have big tears. It works fine, but would love to leave the feeding out, sometimes 1 bottle a night and sometimes 2. I find it the best way to settle her. Yeah, and it usually is. And babies become really accustomed to that, not only being the way to settle, but their internal body clock is then wired in to sort of say, I get calories. I wake here, I get calories here. But already in your comment, knowing that sometimes it's 1 bottle, that says that a baby has the ability to sleep longer. So, I have a podcast episode. Podcast is called Nap Trapped, about our golden rules of weaning overnight feeds. And one of those rules that we talk about in depth is that once you drop an overnight feed, you don't bring it back. So what that means is, let's say in your example, you've had 2 feeds at 11 and 3. Let's say 2 bottles, 2 bottles, 2 bottles. Oh, one night, baby didn't wake until 2. Amazing, huge stretch. 1 bottle, back down. That shows you that baby can sleep organically longer. So what I would do in this scenario, if you were asking for my help of how to push this out and wean this out, is that I would say, okay, 2 a.m. is your benchmark. The next night, you say no feeds before 2 a.m., which means you resettle everything else, which I was talking through on one of my consults today, because baby's feeding every 1 to 2 hours overnight, and we're moving to 2 4-hourly feeds overnight. And we're not going straight into sleep training. There was no self-settling. I was like, you are going to just hold him and dummy replug, dummy replug, dummy replug, particularly on those first couple of nights when we're making change, and sort of rewiring the body clock. And then once they start to sleep, so you do that, you use your resettle technique, whether that's sleep training, whether that's rocking, holding, cuddling, bouncing, for all of those wakings up to that new benchmark time. Then that first waking after 2 a.m. in this example, you offer the full feed, back down until morning. And then the next night, they'll either sleep longer because we've had this pattern interrupt, or we Sorry, I just saw like 5 other questions come through. Or you start to nudge it out yourself. If you think, "Oh, I don't think this baby's gonna end up dropping their sort of 2 to 3 a.m. feed," what I would do is, okay, 2 a.m. keeps coming around, you keep feeding, you resettle 2 a.m. and then feed it the next waking. And that in and of itself will start to nudge it out. And then the second golden rule of weaning overnight feeds is that the closer it gets to 7 a.m., let's say when it's like 3, 4, 5 a.m., the smaller it needs to be, because otherwise, if they have taken a full bottle at 4 a.m., they're not going to be interested at 7 a.m. I hope that made sense. These things always make so much sense in my head because I rabbit on about it all day. And then I just hope that it translates as I talk it out on social media, on reels, on podcasts, on lives. Emily asks, how do you know if baby needs a dream feed or not? 5-month-old is asleep for the dream feed, then wakes 2 or 3 a.m. for the feed. How do you know to drop? This is a really good question. I suspect it sounds like it's working, that you've got a degree of control and consistency. So if it's working for you, you're welcome to keep it. I very rarely, if at all, use a dream feed for a couple of reasons, unless I'm working with twins and I want to get them on the same page so they become one baby. The reason I often move away from dream feeds is because I like to go with a baby's natural hunger pattern, kind of from 4 to 5 months onwards. I think they can be a really useful tool for the earlier months and newborn days, particularly as we're all just trying to get as much sleep as possible. And I find for a lot of more so type A families that I work with that like to know that they have calories in it, this and they like to know what's coming next, which I probably sit in that camp, except when it comes to dream feeds in my own family. But what I often find is, for example, if at 5 months we work to 4-hourly day feeds, then we can mirror that overnight. So we might say, okay, there's going to be a waking around, the first waking after 11, we're going to offer a feed, and then 4 hours after that. But what happens time and time and time again for me, even while I'm on consults, like if I'm working with a family in the States and it's there, late at night for them and middle of the day for me, is that a baby can actually sleep longer. So they might actually be able to sleep until 12:30, and in which case we don't need to have added in the dream feed. So it's up to you. If you're happy to keep it and it feels good and consistent and stable, absolutely keep going. Otherwise, if you're feeling curious, you can drop it and then see when baby is going to wake up organically after that time, and they very well may surprise you. Beck and I also have a podcast episode all about the dream feed. She uses them. She actually used them with her own babies, and we talk about the sort of why we might add it in, and then I definitely talk about the why I don't use them often. So it'll give you even more information. But babies babies surprise me and parents all the time with what they're actually capable of once we remove the dream feed. Um, Great advice, appreciate it. No problem. Oh gosh, how do I put my baby pineapple to sleep? If only I knew. It's very, very spiky. I tell you, some of the comments I get are ridiculous. 4-month-old in the middle of the regression, wake windows often aren't longer than an hour. Should I be stretching this out? Yes, I would be. 90 minutes to 2 hours at 4 months. You just got to use a bit of distraction therapy. Go and check the letterbox. Probably closer to 2 hours. Maybe the first wake window of the day is 1 hour 45. But yes, I would definitely look to stretch because we have to also factor in feeds. And so if we're only working to 1 hour wake windows, where our 4 hour where our feeds. And if naps are feeling all over the place, a baby has to be tired enough to fall asleep, but to stay asleep, either to link a sleep cycle, which may feel very ambitious and fair enough at 4 months old. Um, but it may but they also need to be tired enough to take a full sleep cycle rather than just like a little refresher kip. Um, so yes, I would stretch those wake windows if baby's otherwise well and healthy. If my 8-month-old is used to being picked up after one sleep cycle at nap time and rocked back to sleep, it is absolutely ritualized at this point. Is there any chance of going back to linking cycles? Absolutely. Absolutely. It just takes a little bit of hard work, just some nap work. It's the same after sickness, when often other habits come back into the mix. After travel, after just picking our battles, on random days, habits form really quickly, but absolutely, and especially if I'm reading between the like you're saying, going back to linking sleep cycles, implying that they used to be able to. 100% that skill is still there. Um, so yes, definitely. No time like the present if that's what you're wanting to do. Kelly, does baby have to transition to 2 naps by 9 months? No, definitely not. You can do whatever you like and whatever works for your family. I work with 9-month-old babies. Well, in fact, put them back onto 3 naps strategically. It can become quite a tall order to ask an older 9-month-old baby to hold on to 3 naps without, having an earlier start to your day and a really late bedtime. It's all about how we distribute their sleep across the whole 24 hours. And so you can do it creatively. But for the bulk of the families that I work with, they want 11 to 12 hours of sleep overnight. They want a bedtime somewhere in the sevens, and a wake up somewhere between 6 and 7 for lifestyle, jobs, culture, it's just sort of the norm here. But in saying that, you can do whatever you like. Everybody can. Um, it can just become tricky. But the way I see families end up being on 3 naps for longer is if also a baby just takes 3 sort of 30-minute naps as well. But the families that I work with want longer consolidated naps. But the problem with that also is that when we look down the track of, let's say, a 13, 14, 15-month-old, they're going to organically have longer wake windows, but 2 30-minute naps is not a lot of sleep across the day, in which point we've got big wake windows, and probably we've got overnight issues. So that's kind of my rationale. I'm always looking forward for my families, as well, so that we're geared up for smooth sleep ongoing. So that's probably why you hear about all of my scheduling and nap drops and nap transitions and troubleshooting this. Um, why does my baby wake at 3:30 a.m. and not go back to sleep? I there'll be a reason. There will absolutely be a root cause, Laura. I just don't know without seeing everything. Um, Often, if there's a stubborn waking up at that time, it's due to being a bit chilly, but that's just one thing. It could be genuine hunger. Is it that they had too much day sleep? Is it that the dog starts barking at 3 a.m.? There's so many reasons, but there will be a root cause. Also, what happens when you go back to sleep, are you starting your day at 3:30 AM? 3 That's the middle of the night, for me, so we treat it as an overnight waking. So what is the approach? What is the technique? Is it age appropriate? Is it temperament appropriate? That's also a big thing. Oh, Laura, you've also said 7 months old, trying to sleep train 1 week in and will still cry for an hour or more. I definitely need to know more. This is the perfect I don't know what technique you're using. I don't know what schedule. Um, so we'd need to know more. I need to know more. This is perfect for a consultation because already my brain is firing trying to figure out what could be causing what because whilst tears are very normal while sleep training 1 week in I need you to be able I need my families to see light at the end of the tunnel unless there's something that's being missed. um y- you should be able to definitely feel like, oh, I can keep going, there is so much progress here within a week. Is it okay that a 9-month-old is still needing overnight feeds? It changed from 1, sometimes 2, sometimes 0. Um, Madison, that's a very similar answer to the one just before that if that is okay for you and your baby, absolutely. Um, if they can do sometimes 1 and sometimes 0, then they're absolutely capable of doing less. Equally, if you are so happy to do that, it doesn't take away from hunger at 7 AM, then there's no hard and fast rules. You just rock that if that works for you. If the other part of that question could be if you're also wanting to know, can they go without? Definitely, and your baby's even showing you that they can. I hope people are finding this really helpful. I find it actually really fun, although I'm, like, bugged with my bob hair trying to put it in a ponytail today. Um, Sasha, you've said once nights have been mastered with sleep training, do I work on big afternoon nap or morning short nap, currently contact napping? So you're absolutely right that we master self-settling and sleep training at bedtime and overnight first. Um, then I'm interpreting that as you're on a 2 nap schedule, in which case, it depends on how short long. Depends. I'm just trying to think of an example. I'm trying to remember if I know how old your baby is. Sorry, Sasha. Maybe I don't. But if, for example, you're on the transitional schedule with a 10 to 10:30 and then you're doing the 1 to 3, you do not sleep train 10 till 10:30, you just dive. You sleep train, you nap train nap 2. Um, you kind of gotta pick your longer nap. So if your baby was on medium, let's say 2 medium naps, um oh, okay, 10 months. Yeah, I'd probably go with the 1 hour 45 to 2-hour nap because if you sleep train that first one, there is every chance they don't take it, in which case you're left, scrambling a bit. Whereas that second long nap, they have so much time to practice. I don't care if it takes an hour and 10 minutes for them to fall asleep. They've still got time to then be asleep and you still get them up at the scheduled up time and move forward. What you might like to do though is still try. So even though I would nap train the second your long nap in that scenario, I would it is always worth popping a baby down for that first nap, going and hanging out the washing and just, if it's no dice, rescuing in the nap. In theory, nap 1 is the easiest nap of the day because there's a bit of a hangover from overnight sleep pressure. So you can always just dip your toe in and have a go, but have a rescue plan because if it takes them 28 minutes out of the 30-minute nap to fall asleep, we're kind of in trouble. Sasha, I hope that made sense. Madison, I think that's I'm not sure how to get more calories into his day. 4-hourly breastfeeds 3 times solids. Would love him. It may be that you don't need to get more calories in. You need to offer less overnight, in which case he'll start to tank up more during the day, if that makes like, we take it from the night and give it to the day. I often find that, uh, well, one of 2 things. Some babies can just eat all at night and at day, even though they don't need it at night. Like, if you offer me a Tim Tam twice a night, I'm definitely gonna say yes, and it's not gonna impact how I eat during the day. But it can also be that we need to start whittling down and weaning the overnight feeds in this scenario to give the interest back to the day, a redistribution. It's not feeding less, it's giving it back to the day. And that is the perfect thing for me to have a look at a consult, or if you just want a quick schedule review into Snooze Social, and we can do a quick audit in there. Um, oh, Georgie, I saw you log on before. If you're still here, let me know how Ollie slept for nap 2. Excuse me, everyone. Elise, 9.5-month-old, falls asleep within minutes of naps and bedtime, but often wakes 2.5 to 3 hours later crying. Um, oh, it's so hard to know. Sometimes, and again, this I may be way off the mark here, but this is just an example that I often see, is sometimes if babies are just falling asleep and just almost passing out so quickly, then they're just falling asleep from pure exhaustion rather than from, uh, truly being able to work through the layers of self-settling, in which case there can often be some overtiredness, which can cause these overnight wakings and some hard crying. Um, but again, I would definitely need to know more. Sorry, I was just checking on my absolutely amazing baby that I'm doing a 2-week package with at the moment, but no notes, which no news is good news. I always try to resettle, but he will cry blue murder until he gets breastfed and then falls asleep. Yep. So the only way to know that crying is then going to be normal and productive is if we know that the days are lined up. So even with solids, protein, where is it placed? How much? So even today on a consult I had today with a beautiful mother with this baby's such a good sleeper, just had some early rising. But we talked about increasing the volume of lunch. And it's always a dance between, we still needed him to take his bottle, but he, at his age, could also be offered more at lunch and dinner. But also, the other thing to remember is that when we talk about crying and making a change, that he's tired in the night, and we're all emotionally a little bit more fragile. But sorry, something just popped up on my screen. Is that this was, in order to make change, there are often these tricky moments, and what I don't ever want to happen for a baby is that we dabble in resettling and then give the feed if we are not intending to do that, in the sense that it can then become the status quo that I cry hard, hard, hard until I get X. And like, I don't mean that from a babies are not manipulative. Like, it's none of that. It's just becomes a ritualized pattern that I wake up, I cry, I cry, I cry. Mum has a go at pat, pat, shush, shush, like all the amazing things you're probably trying, and then you feed. So it's all. I just don't want a baby to learn that the longer and harder they cry, the more likely they are to get this when it's not where you're wanting this to all go, if that makes sense. You have to have a really clear plan, and then you need to see it through. And you wouldn't be going cold turkey, you would then feed it the next one, for example. Baby just doesn't know that, so you need to guide them through it, and then you feed it the next one. Um, is it normal for a 7.5-month-old to nap for roughly 30 minutes each? He usually has 3 naps. Is it normal? Yes. Are they capable of sleeping much longer naps? Absolutely yes, at 7.5 months old. It will take probably some nap training for sure. Taylor, baby doesn't take full nap if on the go. Is there a better one to be out for and better to be in the cot for? Ideally 2 naps. Yeah, my baby, both of mine were 1 sleep cycle wonders on the go. They were just too much of a sticky beak to wanna take any more. So if on your 2 nap schedule, you're wanting to have some flexibility, then you do the first one on the go. The first one, because you're gonna have your timing, let's say at 9:30, that's gonna anchor you in and not leave you, so it's all about the timing of it. But the second nap always is the one that I like to protect, because we fill the second half of the day with more sleep so that they go into the night well rested. So I do the first nap on the go. Madison, do you have a podcast on weaning off overnight feeds? We have an episode of Nap Trapped about the 2 golden rules of weaning overnight feeds. With the first rule, like our self-proclaimed rules. The first rule being, once you drop a feed, we don't look to bring it back. And then overnight. And then the second one being that the closer the feed gets to 7 a.m., the smaller it needs to be. And we go into a fair bit of detail. Can you do just a consult, or do you have to do 2-week package also? No, you can absolutely do just a consultation. I do sometimes up to 9 consultations a week. I try at the moment to keep it as 4, just with the podcast and my own 2 beautiful children, and making content, and my membership and whatnot. But I only do maybe between 2 and 4 2-week packages a month, just because they take up more time and I want to give them my all. So no, that was a really long answer to say no. You can just do a consult, and I actually have 2 spots left next week, and you can just book in the link in my bio, or send me an email or DM after this, and I can send you the link, no problem. But you can absolutely start with the podcast for sure as well. I'm just going to have a quick look at what's on the TikTok comment section. Jessica says, how do I ditch the dummy with a 4-month-old great sleeper but won't go down without it? My first thought is, if he's a great sleeper with it and you're not having to replug the dummy a million times, do you need to get rid of it? You're also welcome to keep it. Equally, if you're going to ditch the dummy at 4 months old, you go cold turkey. You just get rid of it. And you can go cold turkey for bedtime and overnight, but keep it for days. But you need to go in armed with another technique. So whether you go in and do shush pat, pick up, put down, a hybrid of the 2, or you do some more traditional space soothing sleep training, you need to have a technique to support your baby through that change, because they don't know that that's coming, and they're very used to sucking off to sleep. So you just go cold turkey, but you need to have a plan. You need to have a plan, definitely. But so many people do it at this age. I would recommend, if you're going to get rid of it, you get rid of it somewhere between 4 and 6 months. Madison, this is super helpful. I'm so glad. it's all of these questions, there is so much hope for everyone's unique sleep goals, the things that they are wanting to tweak, troubleshoot. There is a resource and a reason and a solution to all of this. We just need to map it out, and then you can be confident. My 14-month-old has started taking 30 or 45 minutes to get to sleep at night crying. Any suggestions? Sometimes this can be a scheduling issue. Does baby need more wake time before bed? Um, some babies always need a bit of a cry, although 30 to 45 minutes for me would be starting to feel a bit long. So I'd need to know more because there'll be, as always, there will be a reason. We just need to figure out what could be causing it, and what's happening during that time as well. What's the technique that you're using? Could it accidentally no parent is we are all trying to help and minimize tears, but sometimes certain techniques with older babies can be incredibly overstimulating and just sort of exacerbate the process. So, we'd need to have a look at that as well there. How would you handle knowing you've got a party and it will be a late night for a 9-month-old? Okay, so leading up to that, you prioritize sleep. It's the same as if, you're traveling, or maybe even a time zone change. Um I never ever play around with sleep in the lead up. So you want to go into that day and night we're really well rested. So prioritizing sleep, and then to be honest, maybe you even use the carrier, and or the pram and try and get them off to sleep. Maybe you take a porta cot, depending. I mean, I don't know what kind of party this is. You take a porta cot and put them there, and then pop them in the car and drive home. But for the most part, you just go with the flow a little bit, which is really hard for a lot of families, myself included. I am not, particularly with baby sleep, surprise, surprise, a go with the flow kind of girl. But life is way more than baby sleep. So you just do your best and then you get back on track the next day and you have fun and you don't let scheduling stop you from doing fun things if that's a party that you want to attend. I'm also a big believer in holding boundaries. So if that's something you feel pressured into going to, and this particularly comes up around Christmas time when you've got like 5 million different family events and they're saying, oh, well, you just bring baby, or like you all were slept in the portico. And you can have boundaries around protecting the sleep work that you're doing because they're not there at 3 a.m. So pick the parties you want to go to and then have fun and enjoy and just react as needed to support your baby. Sometimes I think if I have been the cause of the overtiredness, I sometimes think maybe I'll like soften the rules and this is for younger babies. I've been like, okay, I know I'm to blame, so I will assist you. I'll have lower expectations around your ability to self-settle. Equally, when my babies are overtired, they just need to be left to it, because although I can sometimes assist, they don't transfer. They will wake up and they will cry longer and harder. And so I have learned over 6 years that mostly they just need to be left to it. Um, but definitely have fun. Kelly's just updated with her 14-month-old. We usually go in within 10 minutes and settle, walking the room. Don't let him cry too much. Yeah, walking the room can then also become, first of all, you always want to have got to bedtime ruling out all the usual causes of tears at bedtime, such as scheduling, such as um, feeds and whatnot. But it can then also be walking the room at 14 months. You are your baby's absolute favorite person in the whole wide world. And sometimes it can be that they then habitualize that walking, and so they will cry until they get that. Now, that won't have been the case on the first night it ever happened, but it can quickly snowball, and then you're going to have to try and put a 14-month-old back in, and usually it's just sort of this, you kind of play ping pong, um, because they don't wanna be put back in, they can stand up, so it could be that you need a less stimulating but really consistent and reassuring technique, that both reassures them and holds the boundary if it's time to go to sleep. But broken record, we need to figure out, is there another root cause outside of that's causing the bedtime battle? Can your baby self-settle traditionally? That's where I'd also wanna start. My 8-month-old goes to bed at 8 p.m. and always wakes up at 2 a.m. and wants to eat. Help to get him to sleep all night. Lots of weaning overnight feed chats in here. So none of you are ever alone when you're doing your overnight feeds with babies of all sorts of ages. You need to, as always, with an 8-month-old, well, with any age, you need to anchor in your day calories. You need to be so confident and rock solid knowing that if you resettle 2 a.m. or start offering less, that we're not sleep training or doing sleep work through genuine hunger. Oh, Kelly, you're welcome. We need to um, we need to be confident in that. And I also want to rule out any other potential causes of the 2 a.m. waking that then gets resettled with a feed. So it could be that they're waking up for another reason, but a feed is what puts them back to sleep, if that makes sense. And then that can become habitualized. So as always, we do a full check of schedule, environment, solids, milk feeds, the whole shebang, self-settling as well. But if they're sleeping from 8 till 2, they're linking many sleep cycles independently. And then it's either about offering less at 2 a.m. or you resettle 2 a.m. until they go back to sleep and then feed at the next waking, which you will then offer significantly less because you'll get closer to 7 a.m. But you may not have heard before, I was just talking about how I have a podcast episode. My podcast is called Nap Trapped, and we have an episode about the golden rules of weaning overnight feeds, and I think that will be really helpful for you. So I definitely recommend having a listen to that. Oh, Trisha, Bub is standing in the cot and doesn't know how to get back down. She can self-settle but gets worked up not being able to lay down. Yes, this is always, even for the best self-settlers, a little milestone hiccup that can interrupt sleep. So the key is, one, during the day, you need to dedicate some work to it, because that'll make it a much shorter term problem that has the potential to be. Lots and lots and lots of practice during the day, couch surfing, because the thing that they don't yet realize when it's a new skill is that they don't know that they need to bend their knees to get back down. And then let's add in that they're tired and it's the middle of the night, no one's thinking straight. And it can feel a bit of a wobbly, disconcerting feeling. They have to sort of wobble down. So lots of practice during the day. And what I do, so instead of picking up and putting back down, because that's not a teachable, we need this to be a teachable moment, and that just teaches, when you stand up, I'll pick you up and pop you back down, is you actually just gently unfurl their little fingies from the cot railing, and you guide them back down so that you're holding onto them whilst they figure out, oh, I have to bend my knees and I feel wobbly, and back down. And when you were doing it as part of, let's say, self-settling has just gone backwards a little bit, let's say you're now going in every 5 minutes, that is when you do your laying back down, even if she's straight back up to hold on. You don't reinforce that this is a fun game that we're going to do, that every single time as soon as you stand up I lay you back down. You just go in when your timer, whatever your timed check is, if that's what you're using, and you lay her back down. Double down during the day, and the moment you know she can do it on her own, you no longer have to. Even if that means that she stands and stands and stands and stands, she will then sit back down if you know she's got the skill. What is the name of your podcast? My podcast is called Nap Trapped, and you can listen to it. I think we're up to, how many episodes? Almost 50, I think. We've got one coming out later today, another sleep. So we do 2 episodes. Excuse me, I'm stretching out on my couch. We do 2 episodes a week, Tuesdays and Thursdays. Podcast is called Nap Trapped, and it's on Spotify, YouTube, and Apple Podcasts. And it's me and another sleep consultant, Beck, and we just talk all things baby sleep. And we even have caps. If anyone wants a cap, the people voted for the colours, and we now have Nap Trapped merchandise. And I actually wore it to school. Speaking of Beck, I was just spruiking our podcast, Beck. I actually wore the Nap Trapped cap to school drop off a couple of weeks ago, and a mum who has moved to Australia, she said, I remember being nap trapped 6 years ago. And I thought, bingo, this is such a universally understood moment in, almost every mother's life. And it just shows this mother was from a different country. She'd had her baby in China, actually. She's European. And I just thought, yes, we all get it. We all get it. Look, new mama is nap trapped right now. We see you. You can listen to our podcast. This is the perfect listening time, although you're tuning into me, so you're still getting some baby sleep advice. So we do 2 episodes a week. On Tuesdays, we do a main topic. This week was the troubleshooting nap transitions. And then every Thursday, we do a really fun, punchy little episode called Sleep Detectives, where we answer your baby sleep questions. So usually we put out a question box on our socials, Beck at the Sleep Centre and me at the Sleep Concierge. And we then just shoot from the hip. If you knew Beck and I, we don't do a huge amount of pre-gaming before recording, but I think that's what makes it so much fun. But it's all of these sorts of questions that you're asking. Those are the ones we answer on the pod. We usually answer about 4 or 5 of them per episode. And we were actually thinking that we should do a live together, just like I'm doing now, but do a little nap trapped special. But also, I know I've been calling these lives the Snooze Hotline, but we should do a nap trapped hotline when where you can call in and answer your questions, because we're always looking for more information, more context, more energy, more passion, all of that. My son is 4 months and self-settles for bedtime, but wakes around 1:30 and screams until he's fed. Is this normal? I would definitely feed. 4 months old. That absolutely, I have no issue with a 4-month-old baby. That's a huge long stretch, and self-settling, that's amazing. I would give a nice full feed, a big burp, and back into the swaddle and nigh. On average, how many milk ounces should an 8-month-old be taking? I usually, if I'm working with an 8-month-old on 3 naps, I will do their I'll feed 4 hourly, and their bottles will be 6. I'll offer 6 to 8 ounces. It just depends on if you've got overnight feeds or not. There's no, I'm not looking for, hi Ashwini. I'm not looking for some set. Every family's going to be a little bit different, but a full bottle 4 hourly on my schedules would be 6 to 8 ounces, which is a full bottle would be 180 to 240 mils. Can't get baby sleep schedule consistent, which means sleep isn't always great. Kind of annoying because now I'm obsessed with her sleep. Yeah, this is a really it can become all consuming, and it doesn't need to be. But I understand also why it is. So you sort of have two options. You either just hit pause massively. If you feel like baby sleep is taking over your life and detrimental to your well-being, your mental health, hit pause and try your best to just go with the flow for like unfollow me, uh, block every sleep consultant, and just don't chat in the mothers group, WhatsApp group. You just close off the noise for a little bit to try and minimize that feeling of it being all consumed. The other option then is to outsource the thinking. And I think that's a big part of why a lot of families book with sleep consultants, book packages with me, because they've done all the thinking. They've done all the trying, the piecing together, the listening to the podcast, the trialing the schedules, and it's just not working. And whilst baby sleep is kind of it's actually it can be really hard, and it takes someone else. I always say to my families, let me do the thinking. Let me do the troubleshooting. You don't need to calculate the wake window. I'll give you the rough formula, like of what we're aiming for. It'll be pinned in our group chat, but you have employed me to coach you through this. So you just follow the plan, check in, and let me solve this for you or guide you through it or educate you around, oh, yep, this is why what happened. One of the things I found, so I'm traditionally a pediatric nurse and I worked in quite an acute ward setting and there were many medical emergencies. And what I found is that when that emergency buzzer would go, and not that I'm saying baby sleep's an emergency, but sometimes it can feel pretty heightened, is that if everyone comes in with loud voices, different ideas, people shouting, people getting all sorts of panicked and inner tears, nobody can hear anything, nothing productive happens, and it feels like a hot mess. When there is one clear voice at the end of that baby's bed calling the shots, it runs so smoothly. And so I think that's one of the skills that I've taken from my nursing is I try to be that one voice of reason for my families and clients because you have ended up wanting to work with me because you've already done a lot, tried to do so much of the thinking yourself. Have a break is what I'm here to say. Have a break. Um, and I will not be offended if anyone needs to ever block me because baby sleep is becoming too all consuming. You have to look after the mother. Well, all parents, but I primarily work with mothers, so we are gonna nurture the mother. Yaz, flying to Hamilton Island from Sydney. Oh my goodness, can I come too, please? I'll manage baby sleep, while you drink cocktails. But flying to Hamilton Island from Sydney, where we're going back to pre-daylight savings, not sure how to handle all the back and forth. This is where the 1 hour gets super annoying just when you're going for a short time. If you're going for 3 weeks, let's say you just dive in. You've got one of two options. You either stay on your daylight savings schedule, albeit in Hamilton Island, or you just adjust and then flip back. Because chances are you're going for a lovely holiday. I would just mostly, if it was me, I would just mostly push through I'd flip back. And yes, it's going to be messy and it's going to be annoying. And you may not even get all the way there only to come back. But I would want to not have to think about it too much, if that makes sense. I just let the clocks change, get on the schedule. It's annoying, such is life, and then come home and crack on and really lock in the time zone. I actually used to fly to Hamilton Island from Melbourne because I used to, years ago, before I had children, work at Club Med I don't know if anyone listening knows of Club Med. They're all around the world. It's not in Australia anymore. It closed down, but there was a resort on Lindeman Island. So I used to fly to Hamilton and then catch the ferry or the boat from Hamilton to Lindeman Island, and I worked there for almost a year in the kids club and the petty club with all of the babies. But yeah, if you want me to fly into Hamilton Island, say less. I will be there. Okay, Brianna says 7-month-old will only sleep in his own bed until 11:30ish, but after that will only sleep in mine. Um, I want to say this is such a normal and classic scenario, but when if you don't want that to happen, it's not that they will not go back to sleep unless they are in your bed. It's that they will not sleep until you say, because then you will bring them into your bed, if that makes sense. Because we're all trying to pick our battles. It's the middle of the night. Totally get it. However, if it's not what you're wanting to continue to do, then you need to be armed with something else to see it through. Um, because he will absolutely sleep in his cot, if your bed is not on offer. I always feel like I'm so harsh saying that. I try to say it in such a way that I'd never want it to feel like I'm implying that, like, you're failing or it's because of you. It's not at all. It's just it's the understanding of how habits form and how habits change is about seeing it through, if that makes sense. So hopefully that didn't sound too mean. Hi, Lily. 10-month-old co-sleeps, trying to stop feed to sleep, but she's crying for 20 to 30 minutes before I bail. Help. I've been doing half feed 30 minutes before, then a second feed at sleep. No, no, sorry. That was my, the quiet part I said out loud. You need to lock in your anchored feed times. I would not be splitting feeds because then you can't, we need one big full feed the 30 minutes before bed. Or before the nap, you lock in your anchored feed time. So 10 months on 2 nap schedule, you're going to be offering your 3 milk feeds during the day, breastfeeding, double-sided breastfeeds. And then if then you can be confident and not need to bail. But you need to have a technique. You need to be armed with an approach for doing something different outside of feeding to sleep. But the first to taking from what's in your comment, I personally don't split feeds because I want that to be a tanked up feed, not to be snack, and then maybe need another snack, if that makes sense. Um, Nearly 5-month-old waking 1 to 2 hourly overnight. The joys of the 4-month sleep regression. Um, this is where we come back to the fundamentals. The beauty of nearly 5 months old, we get on a schedule. We anchor in 4 hourly full feeds, breast or bottle, doesn't matter. Lily's gonna unlatch now. Oh, tell her I'm sorry. Mean old Sally on the other side of the screen. 5-month-old, so you're getting on a great schedule. We're anchoring in your 4 hourly milk feeds, breast or bottle, doesn't matter. Making sure the environment is perfect, and then it is about having a look at what's happening at those 1 to 2 hourly wake ups. What is the intervention or assistance that you're needing to go in? Is it popping the dummy back in? Is it a feed every time? The consult I had today was with an amazing mum who co-sleeps, but baby's feeding every 1 to 2 hours, and it's just not sustainable. So is it feeding? Is it they need to be rocked back to sleep and then tried to be transferred back down? How can you be doing less of that? That's where I start. If you're doing 4 hourly feeds overnight and you're feeding lots during the day, then we do 4 hourly overnight. She's catnapping during the day, which always and always expects a feed when she wakes, which impacts 4-hourly feeds. Okay, so catnapping, I'm going to ask you to extend the nap, to lengthen it out to the best of your ability. All the assistance outside of feeding to sleep is on the table for you. And so many babies, my own include, want to feed the moment they wake up, whether it's been a 5-minute blink or a 2.5-hour nap. Your 4-hourly stays locked in, and you go and pat the dog and put some washing away and do some distraction to get to the 4 hours, so that the cat napping can organically start to improve by having these really beautiful full feeds, which means full tummy, which means not waking because of a snack, if that makes sense. And there's always a why. It's not just that, as a sleep consultant, I'm anti-feeding to sleep. Not at all. I mean, I breastfed, both of my babies for over a year. It's a really natural way. It can cause issues. It can be part of the problems that I'm then helping families solve and meet their sleep goals. And so moving away from feeding to sleep. So even the mum that I'm working with for the 2-week package at the moment commented like, "Oh my goodness, the feeds have felt so full today." And that's a breastfed baby. And breastfed babies, I'm not sure if your baby's breast or bottle fed, so I'm just off on a tangent now, but breastfed babies absolutely have the capacity to take beautiful, full, complete feeds like a bottle fed baby. Sure, we don't know the exact volume going in, but you do also get the feeling of, oh yeah, that was a really satisfying full feed. You hear the big gulps, and look, they're able to go the 4-hourlies. Um, it's definitely possible. Breastfed babies can sleep just as well as bottle fed babies, and vice versa. Do you find that an afternoon nap for a 6-month-old reduces sleep pressure and results in early rise, even if you respect the wake window, considering some sleep consultants take it out at this age? I would 100%, 10 out of 10 times, put a 6-month-old baby, particularly if you've got sleep issues, with a afternoon cat nap. Um, it You may still get an early rise, but then you can know that it's not because of overtiredness. If you drop the third nap at 6 months, for the babies that I work with, remember, I fix problems. I don't work with babies that don't have sleep issues. Um, but you need to bridge to an appropriate bedtime. We always want to minimize overtiredness. So we're not wanting to stretch wake windows. If we're on 2 naps, then we're to get to a bedtime that's going to help to fix an early rise, we have to be in the 7s, really, 6:45 maybe at the earliest if things have gone maybe a bit south. But we have to get to that bedtime without a baby being overtired. So we need the third nap in the mix, 100% at 6 months of age. The way I personally do it is um, I use a short afternoon nap. I don't ask for an hour, which is a full sort of, more than a full restorative sleep cycle. I just want a little bit to take the edge off, to bridge you to bedtime, to go into the night well rested, so that then if that early rise still appears, you can be confident knowing this isn't a scheduling issue. I'm going to treat it like an overnight waking or whatever the plan is. There always needs to be nuance, because I solve different problems for different families, but that you can back yourself knowing it's not a scheduling issue. Um, Lily, when today's podcast episode comes out, I saw your question on Spotify, on the pod. We actually talk about it today, but I don't add in if baby stays up until 9, or maybe that was slightly different, up at 6:45. The less chopping and changing, the better. Because if you add extra sleep in, you're going to be needing your feeds are going to get all wibbly wobbly. So I'd mostly like get on the schedule and then stick to the schedule, if that makes sense. Um, Emily has tried pick up, put down, hands on in cot, bounce, shush, pat, leaving him to try and get himself back to sleep. Nothing works. Again, in the context of chopping and changing, we need to pick one thing and see it through consistently. Sleep work is about repetition. It's really boring, and to the point where it becomes reassuring for a baby that this is exactly what happens at every single wake up, at every single bedtime, at every single snuffle, squeak, whatever it is. This is what happens. But before you even get to a technique, sorry, Emily, I'm just using your question as example. I can't remember if you've given me more context of age or anything, but you need to have got the day lined up. We talk about this on the podcast as well all the time, that baby sleep work, 75% of it is actually the day stuff. And then we come in with the sleep training technique, the pick up, put down, the hands on cot, whatever it is, on top to bring it all together, to nail the self-settling, to iron out the creases overnight, to then transfer the skill today for the days for nap training, etc. But it will be a very hard experience for a lot of people and babies if you haven't got your days lined up, which kind of leads me to Mum Life Hub asks 11-month-old trying the Ferber method, day 6, wakes up 3 times crying, 40 minutes, 2 to 2.5 hours of day sleep, help. It's not just about the total of day sleep. Whilst, yes, that's something I factor in, I want to know where it's placed. I want to know what the wake window is leading into the nap, into the bedtime. I want to know where the feeds are so that we can definitely know that this isn't hunger. I want to know the volume of solids so that, again, we can, is there definitely protein? What is happening at what time? Have feeds snuck back in? Because it could be normal, usually by day 6. The other thing that can sometimes happen when we're using a Ferber or Ferber style sleep training technique is that on nights, somewhere on along night 3, 4, 5, we have what's called an extinction burst, where things were going really great, going gangbusters, and then bang, night 3, it's usually around there, hits, and things feel so hard. And doubt creeps in for a lot of families, particularly if you're not anticipating this. And then what can happen is that you might think baby's sick, you might add something in. And when that happens, you end up almost having to start night 1 again and again and again because new habits have snuck back in at a really fragile time of the sleep training process. So this is where I'd need to see the big picture. This is where consult, and so when you book a consult, in your confirmation email, you'll get an intake form, and this is where you just share your whole life story, share everything. If you tell me the size of nappies your baby's wearing, great. The more information, the better. I want to know the layers that they're wearing. I want to know the TOG rating of their sleeping bag. I want to know, I'm so ridiculous. I want to know where you're getting your temperature from. Let's say we've got a stubborn waking at 3 a.m. Are you reading your temperature from the monitor, or have you got a thermometer in the room? Is the thermometer at the height of the cot near the baby, or is it near a drafty window? It's your moment to tell me everything. And then we jump into the consult, and I will have always made most of the plan, and then I walk you through it, but I also tweak it as we go, and I get to know you and your baby better in real time. Mum life, exactly, that's what we are experiencing. Yes, it's so common. It's and this is the beauty of sleep consultants. Like, I clearly, I mean, I don't know how long I've been on this live for, but I can talk about baby sleep till the cows come home. And even though every baby and every family is different, there is also a very common pattern and theme that I see with particular issues. And so nothing, I am yet to be flabbergasted by something that I read in a form, because y- if you're experiencing it, someone else is. So if you book a consult, Mum Life Hub, and you haven't slept in 11 months, absolutely no time like the present. Book a consult. You'll then get the intake form, share everything that's going on. I want to know teat size of the bottle. I want to know because already I can see when you feed 30 minutes before sleep 180 mils, you could probably offer a 240 mil bottle. There are so many things that we do before we even get to sleep training to make the sleep training productive. Um, Sophie, what room thermometer do you recommend? I personally use I don't have any I don't go off the monitor. The monitor is useful and then I minus a couple of degrees. I think monitors overreach extensively. The room thermometer that I always use is the little Avent one. I have the flower one that also goes in the bath, and I have found that to be very reliable over the years. So that's the one I use, and I just get it from the chemist or the pharmacy. Um, Neve, when a baby's able to sleep through the night, my 11-month-old wakes once a night for a feed. So The is that's definitely normal, but your 11-month-old who's otherwise healthy, thriving, can absolutely sleep 11 to 12 hours overnight without a feed. Um, for context, the families that I work with, let's say the most common age group I work with, particularly in 2-week packages, are 6 to 9-month-old babies. Before the school holidays, so just a couple of weeks ago, I wrapped up 2 packages, um, with an 8-month-old and a 9-month-old. Both had dropped all feeds, um, overnight. Overnight by the end of the 2 weeks. My first baby slept 12 hours at 12 weeks, and my second baby, who was my tricksy sleeper and really a difficult baby for newborn, he's the biggest delight ever now as an older baby, just a tricky baby, still slept 12 hours at 15 weeks. So that doesn't have to be the norm. I'm often putting feeds back in, and I'm never in some mad dash to drop overnight feeds. I was talking about just before that today I had a consult with the mum of a 6-month-old, and we were talking, and I was asking, did she want to keep a feed in? Because I suspected she would, with our plan, when we've gone from feeding 1 to 2 hourly to 4 hourly, that she was then going to they'd get down to a feed at 2 or 3 a.m. that would then linger. Um, and if she wants to keep that in, that's absolutely no problem. So all that to say, your 11-month-old baby with the right plan and process can absolutely sleep through the night, is my guess. So take that as your pep talk, to make change if you so desire. Mum Life Hub, that's incredibly normal. It's a an association with the room, so that they've asked, after Ferber method, he hates the cotton room, cries when we enter, struggles really bad. Does this happen? It is normal, I'm not afraid of it in the sense that I work with a lot of babies who'll cry even just as we walk into the room. My second baby, and I remember I never had to formally sleep train either of mine. Sleep just sort of unfolded because I always provided opportunity from day one. I always just shaped sleep. Um, my second baby still always needed a quick cry at bedtime for like a year, just 30 seconds, and he'd go to sleep for 12 hours. So, that can very much be normal. Some babies also just they know the pattern, they know what's coming up next, and if anything, that tells me, great, you've got such a beautiful ritual locked in that baby's picking up on these patterns, and sometimes it can be part of unwinding, processing. Uh, it's okay. Sometimes then I can find there's a bit of a negative association when sleep has been really tricky. The solution to that is fixing the sleep problem, and then it comes out in the wash. Once everyone's well slept, everyone loves going to sleep. Sleep is no big deal. That aspect, like the lengthier association, it resolves. But it is normal. I work with a lot of babies, particularly if sleep training has gone on and on and on and on. I think even parents probably feel heightened going into bedtime, wondering what's gonna happen next. Taylor asks about best to just wait for 6 months to stretch out naps, or is there something I can do to extend her naps? I have 2 other kids, so find it difficult to spend time resettling, but it's starting to send me ugh. Yeah, fair enough. Uh, Chances are she might not organically do it. Some babies do, but also some babies don't. And I totally understand you are a finite resource. You do have other babies. You can't be in there forever trying to get this baby to go back down. At 6 months old, I would be doing some nap training. Um, so yeah, I would be doing some nap training. Yana asked, trying to follow the 4-hourly feed advice, but struggling to fit enough feeds in the day for my 9-month-old who is not that interested in solids yet. 2 meals a day. Any advice? Yana, are you on 3 naps or 2 naps? Because a lot of 9-month-old babies are on 2 naps, at which point we drop to 3 milk feeds instead of the 4-hourly for this exact reason, to encourage and strike the balance between the increasing need for solids with, they're on the go. They're 9-month-old babies are so busy. Um, Whereas if you're on 2 naps and you're still trying to squeeze in 4-hourly feeds, it doesn't babies can sort of afford to be not interested in solids, if that makes sense. So, I also have a podcast episode on this, about how to manage milk feeds after the 3 to 2 nap drop. 2 naps most days. Yep. Okay, so there you go. I'd be moving to 3 milk feeds. Go and have a listen, to the podcast episode about that, because it will make so much sense once it once it once you listen to it, and you can map out your day around that and watch solids. And actually, I was chatting to today, my second consult was for a 9-month-old, and on her intake form, when she listed the bottle and the solids timings, she had included, um, that she'd just recently dropped. Oh my goodness, I just saw an amazing message. Ashwini, I'm coming back to you. I was gonna ask you, but I thought, "Oh, no, I don't wanna do it." Is that, uh, she had dropped the 11 AM bottle, rejigged it as per the podcast episode, and what do you know, so much more hunger. Ashwini has said, "Not a question, but just jumped on here to say you're a sleep wizard. Thanks to you, our baby who had chronic early risings is now sleeping 11 hours minimum a night and no more 5 AM wakes." Ashwini, I could almost cry reading that, because I know how hard you have worked on that, and you are all so deserving of a longer sleep in. And I have thought about you guys every day of school holidays, because I almost have this ingrained, like when I check the clock at this hour, that's when you would be sending through your updates during our 2-week package. And I am just so thrilled. So thank you so much for sharing that. And we got there. We got there. Oh, stubborn. It was chronic early rising. Early rising is so stubborn, and you put in the work and you gave it the time it needed, and it is resolved. I'm thrilled. Oh my goodness. Um, so if anyone else is there, just for full transparency, the day we started, I made the early rising worse, because I took away all of these sleep associations, and they started their day at 4:16 with a baby that didn't go back to sleep, and we had to do a bridging nap, and we have now got to 11 hours minimum. He's still asleep now, and it's 6:47 in the UK. All your hard work, thank you. Oh my goodness. I'm just so thrilled. I'm so thrilled, and you trusted the process, and when things don't just click, like results don't just happen immediately. It can be really hard to not trust the process, but you did, and you trusted me, and he's still asleep at 6:47 AM, and we started at 4:16, and he didn't go back to sleep. So yeah, It is all possible, everyone. And this beautiful family is in the UK. So no matter where you are in the world, no matter the time zone, I work with actually almost more families overseas than I do with families in Australia now, which is very cool. But yeah, no matter where you are, we can solve your baby sleep problems and I will coach you through it. So, I was going to message you after this actually. So thank you for sharing that. You can give him the biggest squeeze from me when he wakes up. I'm trying Furbar, but I'm finding I feel so bad letting her cry. We were talking about crying at the beginning of this live. That it's one of the really hard parts of making sleep change, and it's we have to there has to be a degree when we're making change, we have to accept and understand that crying is inevitably going to be part of the process for so many babies. um, Ferber is a behavioral technique, so it is a sort of more of the cry-based technique. It is also incredibly effective and evidence-based. Do you have to do that? No, there are definitely more things hands-on. In saying that, I work with babies who, when we do a hands-on, they cry longer and hard, like it makes it so much worse. So we have to find something that is right for temperaments. The thing I will say about crying with any kind of behavioral sleep training technique is that it needs to be productive. So it needs to be relatively short lived. Not, I have never not had a baby fall asleep at bedtime. Never ever. And you see that on TikTok, like my baby cried for 3.5 hours. I have never had that. Do some babies cry longer and harder? Definitely. And it's usually they're very, very overtired. And sometimes it's temperament as well. Sometimes I work with babies who cry for 12 minutes and then that's it. But again, I will die on the hill that before we even get to using Furbar, can we have organically minimized the chance of crying or lengthy crying based on the day work, the scheduling, the feeds, the calories, how dark it is, all of these things that means to look at sleep holistically. And by doing that, you can then have a greater sense of confidence. Nobody likes crying, myself included, but you know that this is because we're making change and baby is tired and your job is to remain consistent. But if it is feeling like it is not productive, it is not getting better, then usually it means that something else is missing and we need to just backtrack a little bit, and so that she never cries. It's the middle of the night wakes. Yeah, so we need to figure out again. It's this the same sort of the same system applies. We need to figure out why is baby waking in the first place, and that could be because of technique. That could be because of timings, feeds, all sorts of things, habit, and then the difference between bedtime and overnight is that if she hasn't done it at bedtime, it can feel quite jarring to then experience it and wonder if something's wrong. The beauty of the way that I work, at least the beauty that I think of the way that I work, is that I gear families up so they go into the night knowing that we haven't missed something. And yes, there is still elements of trial and error. We need to tweak, we need more data, but the fundamentals of great sleep and the sleep foundations and sleep hygiene have not been met, which means that you can have great resolve in the middle of the night to see that through and to understand why, not just because the sleep consultant said, okay, well, you're going to sleep train for those 2 hours overnight. You need to understand why you might experience that, or what may then happen after that, or what we're looking for, so that it makes sense. It has to make sense to families, even if it's a bit wobbly and a bit messy and 2 steps forward, 1 step back. It always needs to move forward. So we need to figure out, why is she waking up in the middle of the night in the first place? But the thing also, particularly with things like Furbar, is that consistency is what equals less tears. So if because the middle of the night and the early hours of the morning are so much harder for us as parents because we wanna be fast asleep. It can be easier for us to throw in the towel, at which point we sort of have to keep starting again. Um, and sometimes parents, we need to work on, I'm not implying, Priscilla, this is you. I've just now off on a like rant about crying and sleep training. But sometimes we need to work on our cry tolerance and understanding that cry doesn't always mean distress. The way I work is very responsive. Is very temperament appropriate. You can do a modified FERBA, but sometimes we do also need to work on some building up a bit of cry tolerance. It's the same. There's micro moments of, when you're driving and a baby cries and we can't pull over. Nobody likes it, but you realize, okay, everyone is okay. That was not enjoyable at all. We're all sweating, but oh, you love the rant. Good. Um, uh, yeah, sometimes we have to work on cry tolerance, is what I'm going to say, if that makes sense. Um, My 6-month-old used to put herself to sleep after I put her down awake and walked out, then suddenly stopped and won't sleep longer than 30 minutes overnight too. So the first thing takes so much confidence out of the fact that they used to be able to do that. That skill set has not disappeared. We just need to figure out what's going on and how do we entice it back out. And that could involve some sleep training, absolutely, to reset it. But you will not be asking your 6-month-old to do anything they haven't already been able to do, and that really helps build a parent's backbone when they go to make change, because you can be like, no, no, 3 weeks ago you absolutely know how to do this. Now I've done a check. I like the checklist of what could be causing what I've got the stars aligned in terms of schedule feeds, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, great. Now I'm gonna see this through to hit a reset. And there's often this like it drives me a bit batty on TikTok, particularly from like anti-sleep training or quote unquote gentle sleep consultants that are essentially anti-sleep training and anti-sleep training sleep consultants that well, what's the point in why would you ever have to sleep train? Because sometimes you have to do it again. There is no such thing as perfect baby sleep. Baby sleep, you turn up every day with the same expectations, the same loving boundaries, the same pattern, because real life moments happen. We have sickness where even the babies of sleep consultants, we have to throw rules out. The rules don't exist when your baby's got hand, foot, and mouth and hasn't eaten for 2 days and is up in the night. Like it's crazy to to think that something is just set and forget. And while some babies take to it much more easily, some babies also have a tendency to struggle a little bit more with nap transitions. And there is always moments where we have to refresh, reset. And if that is your goal, then that needs to be like we look at baby sleep and toddler sleep, like this is a long term plan. Last week, I had to do essentially the same thing with my own child when we had some early rising, which happens maybe once or twice a year. And I had the same thought of like, "Oh, do you know what? It's 5:30. Do we just get up?" And I was like, "No," because I know that that's kind of his Achilles heel. And then the next day I'd have the same. So I'm not afraid of this. I was so calm and loving and tucked him in and did all the things and he went back to sleep. And so even sleep consultants have to keep working on sleep, if that makes sense. Lots of rants today. Um, Jane asked, best way to stop feeding to sleep. The best way to stop feeding to sleep, Jane, is anchoring in your feed times. And what I mean by that is, depending on your baby's age and the schedule, you lock into spaced feedings and you make them complete and full feed. So, um, for example, if you've got a 6-month-old on 3 naps, I would probably do 4 hourly day feeds either both breasts or 180 to 240 ml bottle. And I mean, take this, I'm just speaking very generally. Do I need a disclaimer of like, not medical advice, not dietitian advice, but the concept is that you lock in those times and then instead of feeding to sleep for the naps, you do anything else other than feed to sleep. I don't care if my families push a pram in a dark room inside with the white noise going. You want to bounce on the fitball for an hour and a half. Please go for it. If you want Irish jig for 45-minute morning nap, go for it. You just need to take a sideways step to what the association is. And often using motion is very, very helpful so that you can shift away from the feed to sleep because there's very little nuance in feeding to sleep. It's very hard to just feed less to sleep because they want to do it to sleep. But what ends up happening is naps they become organically more receptive to something else because they've had this full and complete feed. The reason why I move away from feeding to sleep, well, there's a few different reasons, but one of them is that if a baby suck, falls asleep, chances are they have just had a top up and we get into this snacky cycle and then they probably do a short nap because they want to finish the feed. They feed and then you feed them off to sleep and you're stuck with a lot of these. We want to tank up, not top up. Go and have a listen. Jane, go and have a listen. My podcast is called Nap Trapped, and we have a whole episode about why we don't recommend feeding to sleep and what to do instead. And like all things, I say this with a massive caveat of the way anybody gets their baby to sleep is just none of my business. Like unless a family wants my help, unless someone books me, if you feed to like, it's just no problem. Nothing's a problem. Nothing is a problem until it's a problem, and it's none of my business until you ask for help. So and feeding to sleep is really natural and easy, and sometimes it's the tool in our tool belt, that we keep going back to. So but go and have a listen to that podcast episode, of Nap Trapped because I think it will flesh out the why and how, so that you don't feel like, okay, we've taken away the most helpful, the thing that's been working, the silver bullet, and now what? Oh, Yana listened to it yesterday, loved it, and trying to put into practice now. Yeah, but your little one's hard to resettle. Yeah, it's tricky. It takes a couple of days. If your baby is open to the pram, I think that can become your best friend, and they don't have to sleep. It's going to be messy. They don't have to sleep perfectly for that whole nap. You just have to try and get something in, to help to help make the change because then the next day the little internal body clock's already sort of more wired to the 4-hourly I'm using that as an example, the 4-hourly feeds and, "Oh, wait, mum's still putting me in the pram for this sleep? Actually, this is pretty nice. I'm gonna take to it a little bit better." It's we're making change. Oh, great, Jane. You're going to go and listen to the episode. Fantastic. So podcast is called Nap Trapped. And we've had the most beautiful feedback on the pod, from families just all around the world. It's kind of taken us by surprise. When we first started it, we were both pretty nervous and we thought, let's just do one episode a fortnight. Like, do we even have that much to say? I mean, clearly I can talk. That's never an issue. But people might not want to listen to this. We now do, that was so short-lived. We do 2 podcast episodes a week. And we have tomorrow we're recording, we have 4 topics. I don't know if we'll get through all of them, but 4 to try and get through. We have a Notion spreadsheet and everything. This is the real deal. We are here for the long haul, with little old Nap Trap. So without sounding like a shameless plug as well, if anyone, so that we can keep going, wants to subscribe and hit like and it means that more families see it. Please go and share it with your friends and rate it on Spotify and whatnot, because we have genuinely so much fun recording that pod. Um, let's have a look. Ola, 6-month-old won't sleep longer than 60 minutes. Than 30 minutes in the day, no matter what I do. I have tried self-settling, sleep to stir, resettling after naps, and nothing works. Is there anything I can do? If your baby can self-settle at the beginning of the nap and at bedtime and all night long, well, in between feeds, if you've still got feeds, then it comes down to nap training. But you need to be quite strategic. With a 6-month-old, the way I do it is I only sleep train nap 2, to consolidate that one, because that's the longest one on your schedule, meaning you've got so much opportunity for them to have a go, practice, 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 and it is not a fail if they don't go back to sleep initially. And sometimes I will even cap the first nap of the day to give extra sleep pressure to nap 2. Like, there is so much strategy behind what I do. But your 6-month-old, I have no doubt would be able to take a longer nap, but you need to have a plan, and I think that's where naps are so hard. Naps are a beast. They're a different part of the brain than the night. They're so much trickier. But yeah, I'm working a 2-week package at the moment, and with a 6-month-old, and they nap 12:45 till 2:15. And not to say like every baby has to do that, but that is what I support my 6-month-old babies in doing. 13-month-old, 6:30 wake, 20-minute nap at 10, 1.5 hour nap, 2 till 3:30 bedtimes, and 1 to 2 wakes. It's not settling for me. Mum have night weaned, will scream if I try to comfort. Dad having to do it, trying to avoid controlled crying, etc. Advice, please. Before we get to the technique, I would tweak your schedule. I would do a 10 till 10:30, or if they'll only take 20 minutes, no problem. You do 10:10 till 10:30. But then I would bring that second nap much earlier, because your 20 minutes is not a full sleep cycle, meaning that it's just a little refresher. I was talking about this yesterday, so apologies if anyone's loitered for both lives, is that the way I think of that first nap is like a pressure cooker where you have the valve on the back that when you press the button, just a little bit of steam comes off, versus when you take the lid off and all the steam rushes out and fills the room and your glasses fog up. That first nap is like the pressure cooker valve. You're just taking the edge off. You're just releasing a little bit of sleep pressure, but they're still tired. So I would in fact have that second nap from into the cot at 1 till 3, and then a 7 p.m. bed. That way, there is no chance that your 1 to 2 wakings overnight is happening from overtiredness. The tricky thing at 13 months old is that a lot of hands-on techniques, and I know you're trying to avoid controlled crying, a lot of hands-on techniques just don't work. They have a shelf life. And that's not because I have an agenda to push one thing or the other. I think it's good to normalize and not sugarcoat some of the trickier and realities that come up with older baby work. In saying that, if you're wanting to you're just doing less of what you're currently doing. But it may be that you end up needing to do something Ferber-esque. But before we even get there, I'd be looking at what are the other root causes of this, and just reading that schedule straight away, that's where I would tweak. I was just going on about the podcast, but there is an episode there, Bree, that I think you'll find really helpful, which is all about that schedule that I was just talking about, which is what we call the transitional schedule, which I usually use from 12 months until a baby drops the nap, and goes into detail about it. So go and have a listen to the 2 to 1 nap transition episode of Nap Trapped on the pod. Let's have a look. I hope people are finding this useful. I have a lot of fun doing it. Sorry, I was just checking in about my own children. Haley, silly question, but does this apply for overnight feeds as well, or is that different? Sorry, Haley, I might have missed what I was talking about when you asked that, but maybe you're talking about feeding to sleep. In which case, I'm going to make it that was the question. That is an overnight feeding to sleep. Do you have to wake them or rouse them or not encourage them to fall asleep? No, is the short answer. The overnight feeding to sleep is it's not feeding to sleep, it's an overnight feed. The big but, there is always a but, an exception to the rule. No, the caveat is that the baby needs to have completed the feed. It's feeding to sleep if they just essentially use the bottle or the breast, suck, 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 back to sleep, and they're using it to put themselves back to sleep. But if they've taken a full complete feed, they've taken a full bottle or as close to, they've done a double-sided breastfeed, and it's boob, burp, bed or bottle, burp, bed. If they're asleep at the end of that, there's no problem. And one of the strategies that I use, and again, I was talking about this in a consult today, is that in order to help a baby be more encouraged to complete the feed, if you notice that, at the end of one side at your 11 p.m. big feed, for example, they're really drifting off, I go and change their nappy, and then pop them on the other side or halfway through the bottle, go and change a nappy, just really low stim. Maybe even put, the light on your sound machine, so you can be safe having a look around, but then you, back down. You put them back on or back onto the bottle so that they're encouraged to finish off the feed. Yes, feeding to sleep. Perfect. Hopefully, Haley, that answered your question. I'm hoping. But I don't ever have a family, let's say we've done a full feed at 11 p.m. That was their big investment feed, burped, re-swaddled or back into the sleeping bag, whatever it is, back down. I don't need them to rouse their baby so that their baby can show me their great self-settling skills. If they've fallen asleep at the end of that, that's fantastic. Could still having 3 naps at 9 months be causing my baby to wake up at 5:45 to 6 a.m. now instead of 7? Potentially. If you've got a great sleep, I was talking about this just before, it can be a tall order to ask a 9-month-old baby to stay on 3 naps unless they're really short, tricky naps. But yes, we've only got 24 hours to work with to fit in X amount of sleep totals for different ages. So you can sometimes inevitably end up either with super late bed or an early rise, particularly at that age. But I would need to have a look at like the structure. It's my advice is a little bit different if you've got 3 cat naps. In which case I probably would hold on to onto 3 naps while we fix the early rise and fix everything else before dropping it. Haley, advice. Thanks, Haley. She's waking overnight and won't settle without a feed from listening to advice. It sounds like it's just for comfort, never a full feed. Yeah, I always want to encourage a full feed, again, for your own confidence. So much of the work that I do is for coaching parents. It's not just about the baby. It's about coaching parents about what you might expect, how this might feel. And as soon as I say it, parents are like, yes, okay, that's what I'm experiencing. Yes, I think that's right, or that resonates, or whatever. And so it's a sounding board, but then coach you through, okay, well, now what do I do? What if she does this at this time, so that you're equipped with a plan? You need to be equipped with tools, because I'm just not there at 3 a.m. But so many of my families, that when I finish working with them, end up saying, I just asked myself, what would Sally do? And so that's what I want families to be equipped with the confidence and the empowerment and the strategies, so that when things inevitably crop up, or they're navigating something, that they have that toolkit and my voice in their head to navigate it. Because we're all just trying our absolute best. We're all, no, none of us are given a manual. Speaking of manuals, somebody asked, who was using Furba, your 5 to 12 month baby sleep guide, will it help now that I'm trying Furba? Can I add both? My 5 to 12 month sleep guide uses a modified Furba, so a timed check approach, because guides, it's one of the most useful and evidence-based approach for that age group. Um, the difference for you, Mum Life Hub, is that it's going to give you the scheduling that will set you up for success to help minimize the struggles that you're having. So it will work to get you back on track. And I think, don't ever feel disheartened if you've been trying and trying and trying and trying something, and then you feel like it's not working. Has this all been a waste? There has still been so much learning that has gone on, that none of it has gone to waste. Um, Sorry, I was just reading a message. That's okay. Andrea, can I sleep train at 16 months old? She seems like she knows too much. It's good that you can have a sense of humor and some realistic expectations about that age. You can absolutely sleep train at 16 months. Absolutely. I do it all the time. The most common age group I work with is 6 to 9 month old babies. Absolutely. Can you do that at 6 months old? But you need to have that sense of humor, and you need to go in it knowing that a 16-month-old can stand, that they have stamina, that they have a big set of lungs. Yes, but yes, absolutely. No time like the present. My son is 13 months. He sleeps at 8:30 to 9 at night, but wakes up at 7:30. He naps 2 hours, one nap. If that works for you, great. No problem. No notes. If it's not, then I personally have never popped a 13-month-old onto one nap. But absolutely, there are many different ways to do things. Um, there you go, Katie. The 3 naps. She's taking huge naps at 9 months. So the 1.5 hours for the first nap, the 2 hours in the middle of the day, and then 30 minutes. I mean, amazing, amazing. Overachiever. I love it. But that is why you're getting your early rising from a scheduling perspective. So you need to cap your naps or move to two long naps. Somebody dropped out. I'm not sure if my question came through. Was it answered? So sorry for the double as well. I know you helped. Oh, no problem. To be honest, across Instagram and TikTok, there is I can just keep scrolling and scrolling. There are so many questions that I'm sorry if I've missed anybody's, but this, as always, book a consult, jump into my baby sleep membership. We're in there Monday to Friday answering quick little questions like that. It's not a whole solution in the membership, but a quick audit of your schedule, troubleshooting, sending you in the right direction of what you might need, community support. That's a big part of the baby membership, is knowing that, there's currently over 200 members in there, and in having solidarity and other parents that are in there living and breathing it with you from around the world. Um, okay. Sorry, I've got all these notifications popping up. Um, okay. Somebody's asked appropriate wake time before bed for an 8-month-old. It depends if you're on 3 naps or 2 naps. If you're on 2 naps, then you might use a 3.5-hour wake window. If I'm doing my calculations on the spot correctly, 3:34, 35, 30, yeah, 3.5 hours. If you are on a 3 nap schedule, on one of my naps, the afternoon nap is very small, so I use a 2-hour wake window to bed, which feels crazy early, and it feels like a stark contrast between a 3.5-hour wake window and a 2-hour wake window, but there's method behind the madness, because that third cat nap is 15 minutes. It's not even a sleep cycle. Um, Um, okay, so yeah, definitely jump into Snooze Social, because then you can map it all out. Because otherwise I miss parts of the message and miss the context. So definitely jump in there, and we'll show you where to put your milk feeds for sure. And also walk you through, like, our process of where if you're ready to start weaning, and which bottle or which breastfeed to drop first. Um, hold up. I'm probably gonna sorry, I've just got all of these real life notifications coming through, and my children are at gymnastics. Um, all right, let's answer one more, and then I might call it a day. But I'm going to be back on tomorrow at 9:30 a.m. I set myself the goal of going live every day this week, and we are Thursday, and I have come on every day. So tomorrow I'm actually going to go 9:30 a.m. Melbourne time. Um, so many of you may be a bit nap trapped yourselves during that time. Um, let's have a look and find the final question for today's live. Here we go. Sorry, someone else dropped out. And not sure if you already answered this question. Do you believe there is an 8 or 9 month sleep regression, and any advice for dealing with it? Our good sleeper has turned bad at 9 months old. There is absolutely a perfect storm of events that often hits at around 8 to 9 months old, which can cause what is commonly known as the um, 8-month sleep regression. The reason why I sort of describe it as that is it's not to do with sleep as such, as in, the 4-month sleep regression occurs because there has been a significant and legitimate sleep cycle change and maturation in the way that your baby falls, or the way that your baby sleeps and their sleep cycles. What usually culminates for your good sleeper turned bad at 8 to 9 months is we have a little bit of increased separation anxiety starting to peak, and object permanence developing. So there's lots of teachable moments throughout the day, when you go to the toilet and then come back, teaching them that you always come back, you still exist even when they can't see you. It's also when a lot of babies start to pull up Are they on the move? They are babbling. My second baby said his first word at 9 months. There is lots and lots of things happening developmentally. Increase in solids as well. That can sometimes cause a few wobbles just with digestion, introduction of new foods, keeping that balance between food and milk, but also the 3 to 2 nap drop. So much so that we have a podcast episode again, Yana, on the 8-month sleep regression, but truly the perfect storm of events that we commonly see that culminate in sleep issues at around this age. And again, the most common age group I work with is 6 to 9-month-old babies because there is so much going on. But once you go through the checklist, then your previously good sleeper, I would just hit refresh on sleep training and it will become a thing of the past. It's not I don't really believe this in general with sleep regressions that it's a this too shall pass. The reason this too shall pass is usually because even if parents don't know it, but they have done something or done less of something to encourage and entice the great sleeping to come back out. So hold steady, get back on track, regroup, re-sleep train if needed or if that's your jam, and the 8-month sleep progression will be done and dusted. Speaking of done and dusted, I think that is me. I'll be back tomorrow at 9:30 a.m. Melbourne time. Don't forget, I have consults, 2-week packages, guides, courses, membership, and the podcast. You are never without support and resources, and I would love to be able to help you more in how to get better baby sleep or meet your sleep goal no matter where you are in the world. So on that note, I'm going to log off, but thank you. This has been so much fun and I'll be back tomorrow. Bye.